And we're live. GM Mark, how are we doing today?
GM Pierre. I was just saying, but the 1, 2, 3, the banner was made with Choppa, so I'm pretty disappointed that I don't get xCloud or Twitter famous.
Surprise. This is not Chop, who's not here this week. I think touching a bit of grass, but no, I summoned you here for this week. And I mean, we have a great guest on coming in a minute with Hibachi. So talking perp decks, perp wars, and all that good stuff. Um, yeah. New room, new setup. We were kicked out of the podcast room for furniture moving and so on. So big conference room, a very professional setup today. Anything big that we want to kickstart with on the piss front? What happened? Entropy grants.
Entropy grants, indeed. So for those of you that may not know, Entropy was the second, say, protocol/product under the Pith Network umbrella. Entropy is a randomness solution, on-chain randomness solution. It's cheap, it's fast, it's easy to use. It's on like 15 EVM chains. And recently, now, few months back, we already released like Entropy V2, which aim to improve the developer experience. Like you have a block explorer now to help troubleshoot you as you integrate. And part of upgrading contracts, the bad thing is that it usually breaks your contract verification on block explorer. So it becomes a bit more tricky for non-tech people like me to interact/understand the protocol, the code, but also makes life harder even for those who know how to code. So to fix this, rather than do the work ourselves, we're like, all right, let's get the community, let's get the guys that actually use it to do the work themselves. And so the work is important and mysterious. And the work is to verify peace contract of Entropy peace contract on all the chains we've deployed, both testnet and mainnet. So you can first try out on testnet. If it looks good, you jump to mainnet. But why should you do this? Why would you want to do this? There is a sweet little pit reward at the end. I think we've put it at 1K PEF per chain verified. We have 15, so if you're good and fast, you might bag 15K PEF for doing this. I guess if you're good, it's less than a whole day of work, assuming you're fast and good at it. So that's it. We have with Needy, actually, that you might see on the timeline bunch of time. We're gonna we're already thinking on reviving a bit more these bounties, whether it's for the price feeds, whether it's for Entropy, or back in the day we had like the wonderful Dune dashboard made by Bats or Since Quest. So you should expect more of these bounty-ish things to come back from the Pith network.
Some sweet pith. Some developers and community members can grab. Amazing. I mean, I see Varun. We've had him waiting a bit. Let's get him on. GM, sir, super excited to have you on to talk Hibachi. Is Hibachi, just a quick one, the name from the Japanese steakhouse stuff, or completely unrelated?
No, I love cooking, but in this particular case, I did not intern at Benihana's, so
Okay.
this has nothing to do with that. But that being said, it is inspired by the concept of a fire grill. So the whole idea is, we have this internal thing that we keep saying, "Let's cook," and I'm like, okay, well, if you want a fire name, let's literally name it after a fire grill, right? And then what better is out there? So that's sort of the origin story. So funny enough, I've never been to Benihana's or the Hibachi. So
Okay.
one day we'll go there.
I think it's worth a try. It's pretty good. or at least the chefs are pretty talented. They're cooking and with fire and with doing some chimney stuff, which is pretty fun. But Varm, thank you for taking the time to hop on today with us. I think it's episode 27, so now we're deep in our bag. To kickstart, can you introduce tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into crypto?
Oh, that's a long story. So a bit about myself. My background is in aerospace engineering and physics, right? So I kind of came from a more non-finance background in that sense. I was working in the space industry, building like satellite systems to do Earth imagery. This was back in 2015, 16, before I got excited about crypto. Right. So funny enough, I learned about crypto and Ethereum at the time from a friend in a hot tub. Right. I think the story I tell this multiple times. So he told me about this Ethereum ICO at the time, and then obviously a 2017 thing happened, and then the rest is history, right? And funny enough, 3 years later, I ended up meeting my co-founder in the same hot tub. So I suppose there's something magical about it. So I think in general, if you ask me when did I get into crypto, that's like around 2016 timeframe. But then obviously been in the space since then. At the time, I was just mostly trading on my own. 2020 ended up founding Hashflow, and then 2025, 5 years later, now you're doing Hibachi. So
When are we getting into this hot tub?
I know if you're in the Bay Area, one of these days, I think I might just have to go back there just for the old time's sake. As it's like when you're 30 years later, you go back to your high school. So I think this might be it. Just pay homage.
And I mean, to kickstart on Hibachi, the tagline on Twitter reads pretty cleanly. If I don't make a mistake, fast and private perps secured by ZK. Can you maybe give us a TLDR intro into what you guys are cooking over at Hibachi?
No, we cook everything, But no, I think the quick TLDR, obviously, it's a decentralized exchange, right? So that's the high level, simple 4-word description or 2-word description. But more specifically, what it's doing under the hood is it's basically an off-chain central limit order book that proves its state on-chain and for anyone to verify. So basically what you're doing with that, and then posts encrypted data on-chain so that you know that the proof does in fact point to the right data set. But you don't really see people's positions or trades publicly, right? So basically achieving 3 things by doing this. One is you are essentially getting performance that like down to like sub-millisecond latency on par with OKX, Binance, Bybit, and so on, right? So something that as a trader, especially an API trader, you care about a lot, right? So the second thing you do with that is you're proving the exchange integrity on chain, so you still have the guarantees that the exchange is like not doing anything funny, and if in case that isn't detected, you do have ways for people to exit from the exchange. So you're kind of avoiding what you saw with FTX, right? So you get that. And then lastly, you keep, you preserve the privacy of user positions and trades that, no one else has any access to your information besides the parties that are trading, in this case, the exchange and the user itself, right? So that's the general setup, right? So how it's working currently. And that's been a core principle in general, right? So you're basically building for practicality over ideology, right? So that's something we generally tend to, anytime we do any kind of design decision, it's more about, okay, does this actually make the user experience better? If yes, then let's do it. If it doesn't, then let's not do it for the sake of, an ideological stance. I mean, we do have and funny enough, that in itself is an ideology. but I put it that way. But that being said, that's been our design principle. So in this case, the three things we've been optimizing for is performance, privacy, and getting users permissionless exit guarantees if things go wrong, right? So the third part is still working towards. It's a work in progress, but I think that would be the technical end state. But obviously the big picture, big vision is how do you build the best trading platform where the serious money moves, right? So, and that's what we are building towards.
I mean, when you rephrase it, it's not easy because it's like building in the best possible fashion, like verifiable but private, while not compromising on user experience. And user experience being me as a retail or as a professional HFT or MM. So, and that's pretty cool to hear because, I mean, now it feels like, in practice, it feels like most protocol kind of have to opt in for one or the other. Either it's optimizing so much for UX that decentralization, resiliency, censorship resistant is just thrown out of the window, or the reverse. Like it's fully trustless, it's amazing, but the product kind of sticks, or it's super slow, it's super clunky. So kudos on trying to not take a shortcut there.
Yes, I think there is trade-offs there, right? So there's no free lunch, no matter what you do. So my thinking is that if you're building a pure L1, like Bitcoin or Zcash, something like that, then obviously the things you mentioned, like how trustless it is and censorship resistance, basically making sure a state cannot attack the chain, things like that, they become way more critical. Like, in fact, you're creating a decentralized money. Basically, you're saying is I'm going to launch something that's going to compete against US dollar, right? So, at that point, these things, like any kind of nation state level attacks, you need to be able to make sure that your chain is actually resilient. So something like that, right? So now, if you're building a product that users want to use, I feel like the attack surface is actually slightly different, right? So in this case, maybe I don't need the trust assumptions to be as strong as it needs to be for like an L1, something like Zcash. But at the same time, I still need to make sure that something like FTX doesn't repeat itself. So that may be much more easier to achieve that by building let's say a centralized sequencer that is verifiable versus building a decentralized sequencer with everything being on chain in an L1, right? So again, that's like the way we think about it, but that is not to say that's the canonical way to think about things, right? So that's just point out that.
On the ZK part, because as you do an exchange, you have first like all the features, the privacy you want, like it feels like you must either, let's say, have a big team, kind of some cryptographer plus some more quant just on the risk side of a pure, like any type of exchange, centralized or decentralized. So do you kind of do everything in-house, or do you, because for example, just reviewing the ZK part, it reminds me a bit of Paradex that leverage a lot like the Starkware tech. How do you do your privacy? Is it homemade, or do you just like run some stuff?
It's a combination of effort. So we've had a bunch of help from the teams from Succinct and Celestia, right? So and they've been like pretty hands-on in terms of helping us build the tech, right? So and we're still developing new things. So for context, like the ZK proving part, so Succinct, they helped us build like a private way to do it, right? So private in the sense that essentially this is I'm referring to the public network versus running our own node where we can prove state without disclosing transactions to anybody else, right? So, and then obviously the DA part, we worked closely with Celestia and Succinct to develop that. The idea was essentially we post an encrypted state onto Celestia's DA, and then we compute another ZK proof that is basically proving that the encrypted state does in fact point to the correct data set that was used to compute the original ZK proof in the first place, right? So the idea being, you have a state, encrypted state that exists on Celestia that does in fact point to the right proof, right? So that is living on the respective chains where we post DK proofs on. So that has been like let's say the V1 of the model at the moment, right? So in the coming months, a few changes you'll see an improvement in the design would be, one is having a canonical ZK proof that can be verified natively in Celestia state machine. So that way you're not using, you're not posting like a proof on 10 different chains. So that should simplify the architecture significantly. And then the other thing we are working towards is being able to have users have their own decryption key that they can use to decipher their own positions and transactions and make sure that they're included in the Merkle tree without having to decrypt the entire state, right? So that's, that will basically that will basically make the system a lot more hardened, right, than it currently is. But obviously that sounds trivial, but it's actually a really, really challenging problem to address, so which is also the reason why it's taking so long. But instead, it's going to be pretty good, right? So that's what we're working towards at the cryptographical level over there.
No, and I mean, and this is great, and I guess this is a bunch of things we usually don't hear or focus that much, especially on the trading world or etc. If you had some cues, Pierre.
So I guess you talked a bit about what's coming purely on tech side. Maybe what's what has been working well for you guys in terms of maybe the top markets that you guys have on Hibachi? I think I was checking you at about 30, if I'm not mistaken, with a couple of the majors, some new ones that are coming out like Plasma, I think ZEC and so on. What are the stuff that most your traders really enjoy on trading on Hibachi?
So today I would say we are fairly primitive, right, in terms of an exchange, right? So I think one of the things we want to do is get to feature parity with some of the tier one dexes that are out there today, like namely Hyperliquid, Lighter is good, Paradox is actually doing quite well, right? So and I think so one of the goals we have internally is at least be on par with these as soon as possible to reach feature parity. But then obviously the bigger North Star is being on par with something like Bybit or Binance, right? So that's something, because once you achieve that, you already have a baseline of what an exchange should be. And then obviously the third milestone to that is, you go beyond that and you're really going for like the world dominance, right? So I think a few things that we ran like a mini preseason between June and like September. That was, when we kind of put out something to not delay the launch and get people to start testing the product, and got a bunch of feedback and improved many other things, including the platform stability and things like that. So, and now we launched the regular season that has been live for the last, that went live last week. And it did come with lots of improvements, including like the APIs, the Python SDK, the REST SDK is coming up for traders to use directly. And then obviously the scalability of database, we improved that significantly, right? And then front end is much faster and so on. So this month, I think people can expect a lot more product or front end improvements. That's one thing. But then also Vaults will be launching. I won't give you the date just yet, but that's going to be similar to HLP or LLP style, right? So where you can deposit funds and then earn yield. And then we run like a in-house market making strategy on that. So that is coming out this month. And then a few other things we are working towards is basically zero downtime deployment, where there will be like almost no maintenance windows ever, right? So that is something we care. I mean, like if you're trading pubs 24/7, then the exchange needs to be live 24/7. Again, we don't want maintenance windows almost ever, right? So I think that's something. Especially because when you have like crazy times like the Black Friday of crypto that happened a couple of weeks ago. The good thing is we stayed live during that window, but many exchanges didn't. And I think when you're building an exchange, you also got to prepare for those kind of days and then make sure that when those things happen, you are like the exchange that is standing there and making sure things work, right? So these are more infra level problems that are not sexy enough on paper, but then they are likely some of the most critical things that will pay dividends in the long run, right? So so those are the things that we want to address this year, and then obviously we have this on the roadmap to go about multi-collateral and how to unified accounting system. So that is another thing that you can expect, along with like mobile support, and then obviously I've mentioned this a couple of times that there's a big institutional partnership announcement that's coming out to build something really cool. That announcement should launch sometime this month, so people will know what it is about. I can't just say it just yet, but there's a bunch of things coming out, right? So so at the moment we see ourselves as the underdogs, but I think it's I like being in that position where we are the underdogs, and and going about the writing that story, right? So I think it's gonna be fun.
But as you mentioned, what was it? Yeah, October 10, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, October 10 or 11. How did being order book based? Did you see? Because we had the whole, I guess, debate online of order book based versus pure Oracle based, as it's quite different. Because like market makers or professional market makers in an order book are usually more prompt to withdrawing bids and asks when like shit hit the fan, versus a classic like HRP, like let's call it passive liquidity, where people just don't even think about withdrawing when this happens. How did you fare? How did it fare on Hibachi? Did you have like whether through like already like active MMs or big traders on your books? Like were you happy with the pure, let's say, price performance and market performance? Because that was quite intense from Binance to Hyperliquid to Lighter. Everyone was kind of like, oh, what the fuck has just happened?
Yeah, no, so I think from our perspective, the good thing is the exchange function, kept working. It didn't actually. The systems were actually working just fine despite the market conditions being bad. Excuse me. Things that could have gone better is few of this TPSL things didn't trigger properly, and I think we've been actively looking into figuring that and making sure that doesn't happen in the future. And obviously, few market makers did pull back their liquidity when that happened, right? So this basically reinforces why having something like a vault, like a HLP or LLP, as a backstop when these things happen would be actually a big benefit to the overall product, right? So, and which is also the reason why we want to make that push this month, so that the future we are much more equipped to handle something like that. But overall, like many exchanges actually just stopped working for multiple hours and had like a lights out, and I think we were not one of those people. So that is actually a good thing. So that was the big positive that came out of that. And obviously, things to improve would be having like backstop liquidity to make sure that things like these, if someone is pulling out the liquidity, you're not basically giving worse prices. So people still have the stop losses and TPSL triggered on time. So that's something we need to work towards. But the good thing is we have a plan to figure that out, and hopefully next time, hope that doesn't happen. But if there is a situation like that, we are better ready to deal with them.
And I guess one of these other hot topics during that Black Friday was auto deleveraging, where I'm not nearly smart enough to really truly understand what's happening. But do you have insights or an opinion of? I guess Hyperliquid was lots of auto deleveraging happening. What's your take or thoughts about the system and how it worked for Hyperliquid in that case?
I mean, it worked as they promised it's going to work, right? So I think like it's like not a new thing or not something unique to Hyperliquid. Like every major exchange has ADL. Obviously, the whole idea, is it fair? Like not really. It's kind of annoying. It's actually bad user experience in many ways, but unfortunately, like that's like one of the mechanisms that almost every exchange has. But the idea is, you're basically closing profitable traders' positions to make up for, the losses for people who actually lost money, right? So basically, no way you're taking money from the people who actually made money to make up for making sure the exchange remains solvent. So that's obviously the oversimplification for everybody on the call here. But now, yeah, is it fair? Like, absolutely not. But at the same time, many exchanges use it. Deribit is actually an interesting example, which doesn't do ADL. So I believe they have like something called socialized losses, where they sort of split share the loss amongst like all the traders alike, which is sort of interesting. And they are more opinionated about not doing ADL. Now, obviously, some have argued that's a better mechanism, and I think Fiddy from Paradigm Paradex wrote a big piece on Twitter around how Paradex is following a similar model. So there's a few ways to deal with that. But you can do ADL, or there is the concept of socialized losses which you can apply. I don't know there's a right or wrong answer to it, but obviously I think there's a few things you can do to avoid things like that. Like, obviously make sure your liquidation systems are actually responsive to like low latency time flicks. Whenever price movement like this happens in a short burst of time, having systems that can react that quickly is actually super important, which comes down to your Oracle price feed and how quickly you're getting them, and how quickly can you react to, like, let's say, millisecond price movements, right? So that you're liquidating on time and your systems react quickly. I think that's like the technical level problem to address to begin with. And then the second step is, obviously, if you have the best system in the world and you still have that issue, then having obviously your insurance fund that you can tip into is another question. Then if that doesn't work, then having some sort of backstop market makers to take on this risk for some premium could be another way to deal with it. And if that doesn't work either, then you can actually go into something like ADL or socialized losses or some combination of that. So there is multiple steps, but ideally you don't get into like the level 5, level 6 of the inferno, right? You sort of use your system resiliency to kind of fix those things to begin with, right? So another concept we've been thinking about is actually, instead of having the socialized losses amongst like traders, you can actually use some sort of a pool where LPs contribute and then they earn yield. But then obviously they act as a backstop when something like this happens. Now, obviously you are moving the socialized losses from traders onto the LPs, but someone has to end up taking that, right? So obviously the ideal scenario is we don't get to that to begin with. I don't know if Hyperliquid does this, but maybe their HLP acts both as a backstop for absorbing these losses at the LP level, as well as just a pool for market making, but I'm not sure about that one. Maybe they don't, but I thought they combined the whole idea of HLP and insurance fund into one, but maybe that's not the case. So anyway, these are just some ideas. So there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's more about how do you minimize the UX where profitable traders are losing money, or their positions are getting reduced, right? So that's the thing. That's the biggest challenge here, and we've been thinking a lot about like different ways to deal with that. So
what was funny was this, it was like, it felt like 80+% of the crypto world, crypto traders kind of discovered ADL after the fact. Like, it was mentioned, like it was in the docs, it was, yeah, we have ADL, but I mean, as always, people don't read docs, etc. But also where I think it's positive, or what's gonna, I hope, like stem out of it, is also like, it's good to say, okay, my exchange has ADL, like, great, but explain how your ADL works. Who gets like their position closed first, etc. Because I think you did have also a bit of like people not getting closed exactly at the same price. Where is this guy trade getting ADL first versus mine? And also, and I guess this is truer on the centralized exchange, is, are there some accounts, I mean, same idea, are there, rather than look at the position, is there some gold accounts that would be they have the worst trade. So technically we would ADR them first, but we have a special deal. So actually we'll ADR you last, etc. So I do hope that from this, we get a bit more, not disclosure, but education and explanation around how each ADR program works.
Yeah, I think most exchanges do have it in the documentation, unless they're doing something that they don't disclose. That's obviously not good. But I think one of the other issues is it's not that crypto discovering ADL. It's many of the users who are using Hyperliquid and LPs are airdrop farmers, right? So and who've been just degenerating their way into everything to earn points, etc. But then very few of them are actually been like real traders who've been trading for years, right? So many of them are newcomers who are seeing opportunity to earn points, things like that. So and as it happens, sometimes you don't study the entire mechanism and you just go YOLO on this one, right? So and then if this was like the first black swan event that we've experienced in a while, and I think that's likely where they're like, wait a minute, this is even possible. Let me go and check what ADL is, right? So I don't know if you can question the ethics of ADL and then debate other better mechanisms to improve the UX, which we absolutely should. But I don't think Hyperliquid did anything that they didn't say they would not do or they would do. I think they did exactly what they had in the documentation. So now, whether you consider it good or bad, it's a different debate, right? So, but they at least didn't do anything that they didn't say, right? So, I mean, I like Jeff personally, right? So,
yeah. I mean, usually I get liquidated even before ADL kicks in. So
one, and for the Pythians we have watching now, and to do my research, I obviously opened the trade on Hibachi earlier today. But you've got a bunch of things happening. I think I've seen points. I've seen some NFTs being handed around to the top traders. What's right now the hot pitch for the people watching us right now to say, hey, come check out hibachi.xyz, I believe, and come trade with us and try out the protocol.
Sorry, could you repeat the last question? Is it
what's the hot pitch for the ones watching us right now to say, hey, come check out Hibachi and try trading with us?
Oh, the pitch is basically we're an dogs here. If you're testing it right now, you're likely very, very early to the product, and we're building towards something special. We're going to be building one of the better exchanges in the market, where the serious money is going to be trading in a year. So don't fade us, right? So and if you want to be early, this is the time to be there. So
points for now are for trading on the. Huh?
Second, I said fade at your own risk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't take the risk. I've earned a few points already. But so for now, points are trading on the platform, and I guess more would come with the vault and the LPing, I guess, later
on. That's correct. So there is trading base obviously in vaults will allow any retail to deposit funds and then just earn yield or on their deposits, right? So that is something that will be launching sometime this month. Again, the date is TBD, but it's sooner than you think. So
I guess we must be ready. 1Q now. I guess we're on a Pyth live stream, and we're a big fan of oracles and price feeds. How do you work with the Pyth price feeds? Can you take us into how have you integrated data to make sure prices are correct and Hibachi running smoothly on that side?
Yeah, no, I think we've been using Pyth as one venues to give us the Oracle price. So the idea is, obviously you're sourcing pricing from different exchanges. I think Pyth does a pretty good job of aggregating prices and giving us prices in pretty like a real-time latency, which is actually pretty nice. Because, like I said, if you're running a central limit order book, and for something that's high performant as we are, it's critical that we receive these prices in like a bit, like almost like in the millisecond range in the latency. And Pit has built a pretty good system that allows us to do that. So we've been using Pit since we built the products. I think we've been using Pit since we built first went live, right? So it's been pretty good in that sense.
Amazing.
And we pretty much use it for everything. So
because usually order book based, usually you need an oracle for your index, for your funding, and for liquidations. Because protocols do it a bit differently. Do you liquidate purely on the mark price? Do you smoothen it out in case you have some, let's say, lack of liquidity or some dislocation on Hibachi? How do you trigger liquidations?
So generally, I mean, what we do is we call it partial liquidations. So as opposed to just closing the entire position out in a single take, what we tend to do is if a user's position is in the risky territory, we'll start closing the position to make sure they don't lose the entire value of the collateral, obviously. But if the price just continues moving against them, then tough luck, right? So there's nothing you could do. But on the other hand, if the price moves back, then you don't end up losing the entire collateral. So we have this mechanism called partial liquidation that actually works better in users' favor. One of the feedbacks we've been getting is obviously how best to see partial liquidation on the UI. So I think that's something people can expect as a feature, where they can see when they got the partial lick and then how that changed. So that's something we are going to be adding in the product.
We mentioned a lot, and I think most DEXs right now kind of have to compete on this, is purely user experience, regardless of the tech behind and regardless in hyphen. Do you envision exchanges, DEXs to kind of ship? Do you expect to be, let's say, always shipping Hibachi both on the back end and on the front end / user experience, or also aim towards enabling other people to build on top of Hibachi? Because, for example, couple things that it feels are very powerful is pair trading. I want to trade BTC versus ETH. And maybe you could, for example, Peer Protocol, I think does this based on other exchange. They would actually go enable you to long BTC USD, short ETH USD. Do you think, or is it currently in your mind that you kind of want to own the whole stack, as in create also all the features, all the nice product, like the vault, etc.? Or would you also imagine just anyone can do it, and actually incentivize people to build extra user interface for Hibachi?
So that's an interesting idea, right? So I think it's sort of like Hyperliquid's builder code in many ways, maybe slightly different, but no, I think that's something we want to move towards, where eventually we have people adding open source contributions to the product and then building it from there, because that's where you kind of maximize both participation and distribution, right? So it's not there today, but that is something that will be we are building towards in the coming months, right? So when next year you can actually see us open this up, where people can basically build and add adapters to the product, or even take the backend and integrate that with their own front ends, things like that. So that is something we have on the roadmap.
And it got me thinking. I don't know why I thought about this. I've actually almost never used one. What do you think of perpetual aggregator? Is it something that, as you build an actual PerfDex, makes sense to ask you, is it something that will happen? Can you actually, is it making sense to have my BTC long to be spread around various DEXs? Is it practical? Is it optimized?
It's tricky, right? So I'm not saying it's impossible or it's bad or good or whatnot. But my take is that, like, given that how every exchange manages risk so differently, or it's like not constant, it could be like a little tricky to build a perps aggregator and then just it's not the same as building a spot exchange or spot aggregator, which is a lot simpler to manage, right? So that which is where I'm a bit on the fence around, like, having a perp aggregator, and if it's just a good idea to do it, or how it's going to be. But again, maybe I could be wrong, right? So that's something we'll find out. Like, maybe all you're doing is you have one platform, but then you just show prices from different places, but then you just place trade, but then you're storing funds in a external contract that is not live. But the thing is, if you're trading perps, you have to deposit funds into an exchange, right? And then how do you split them? And then how do you manage that? It's a lot more tricky than just building a DEX aggregator where, like, 1inch, where you basically sign your trade and then 1inch does the splitting across different dexes, and then it just happens because most perp dexes are like obviously not fully on chain, and even if they are on their own L1s, you still the mechanism to trade on them is vastly different, and they have like different set of risk parameters, which is also not constant, right? So it's hard to emulate that, and I don't know if that's actually good for the end user either. So it's actually more riskier, I think. So I'm not sure if that's a good idea.
Yeah, and thinking about it, you have different funding rates, time window, so it might actually be just too complex to even come up with a good aggregator, like a good, like, splitting trades, because you need to know how long am I going to stick in the trade, etc. That's interesting. Maybe it's more like, I mean, maybe not aggregator, but it will be a comparator. You want to take this trade, and it will show you, I guess, the various scenario, I guess, the slippage.
They build like interfaces on like funding rate arbitrage and showing funding rate on different venues, and then building bots to do ARB strategies and things like that. Those are more interesting to me than like a pure aggregator that gives you the best price across perps exchanges. Like, that doesn't. I don't know if that model actually works with perps trading, but that said, I think my theory here is that you're not going to end up with like 50 different perps exchanges like you did in the DEX era, right? So, and even with the DEXs, when that happened, obviously the top 5 or 7 DEXs ended up taking the lion's share, right? So, and others sort of disappeared over time. So what will likely end up happening is you'll see like 5 or 6 DEXs emerge as the winners, right? So who will survive the long game, and then others will sort of, not really be there, right? So, and we've seen this happen even in 2016, 17, right? We had like Binance, OKX, Coinbase, Kraken, the survivors, they made it through. And then you had a bunch of long tail exchanges back in the day, which, like Bittrex and Mt. Gox and a bunch of others, right? So, and then those kind of disappeared over time. So I could see a very similar story repeat itself here.
I got one on, I guess now with HIP3 and I guess the excitement around stocks and I mean on perps and so on. There was perps on stocks before HIP3 and Hyperliquid, with a couple of the perps we know on our hand, like Aventis and a few others. Is this something you have on your mind for, on roadmap, is, having US equities, indices and so on in the future?
I think I've mentioned there's a big institutional partnership coming up that'll be announced in the coming weeks. So I think that should very adequately answer that question.
It goes in this direction then.
Say again?
It goes in this direction, but it's interesting to see how various people takes on it. Like, for example, and there was like 4 years ago, like Cap Finance, for example, I recall that the QQQ, like pure Oracle based perps. Ostium's doing a bit similar, but on the order book part, I think it's still kind of hard, because I guess you need, like, if it's like spot, like you'll need a tokenized version. and now you have like various competitors tokenizing the same stock. Most are still illiquid. You have superstate that actually means real shares into token, like it's not the tokenized version. So it just feels like we've yet to really understand what's going to win or where the liquidity will be for it to work amazingly well, I feel. So I guess it's mostly they just want like crypto going down, and crypto people want stuff that goes up, and they just see the SPY or the QQQ going up and want exposure, I guess. Are you a big FX? Or do you have effects on Hibachi yet or not?
No, not yet. But this is also part of the same endeavor, right? So I think there's a good opportunity there in terms of building a institutional focused platform that is actually bringing these markets to the dexes. I think, and I think with this collab, I think it's going to be pretty big, right? Because like it's basically the guys who create these assets, right? So I think that's great, which is also why I'm pretty excited about that direction in general. Because over time, obviously, which is why I said, you want to become the venue where the serious money is actually trading, right? So, and how do you build the infra to enable that? And I think this is the starting point to get to steer in that direction.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on the account and the institutional partnership coming. Any other question, Mark? Or
I had one, but I forgot it. So go ahead if you have one. I'll try to.
Usually we try to end the stream with this one. So anything you want we haven't talked about, Varun, that you want to touch upon or ask yourself a question, pretty much.
Actually, I think we covered almost every topic. We actually did a pretty good job of being thorough with everything. So can't think of anything in particular at the moment.
I've found my question again. I am shouting, it's been years, so maybe no one's done it. So either no one listens to me or it's just a dumb idea.
I'll listen to it.
Yield like perps versus yield bearing stables, or like I'm still shocked that like we could halve the cost of funding if actually like you'd mix in some like yield bearing stable coin into your perp decks. Does this make sense at all? Have you thought about it, or I'm just retarded?
I think depends on who is the yield. Like as famous saying goes, if you don't know where the yield comes from, then you are the yield, right? So I think that's what it boils down to. So it's like,
for example, if you take just let's say Ondo USDY, which is arguably 100 UST bills, pretty safe, and they must be regulated, etc.
So as an example, if Circle is offering yield on USDC for holding USDC, and the yield is coming from not doing something funky with the USDC mechanism itself, no issues with that, right? So on the other hand, Terra Luna as a yield bearing asset, putting it as a collateral, a bit more risky, right? So I think it comes down to what is that coin that is generating the yield, and how are they managing the risk. I know some exchanges are doing something even more crazy, where they are basically tokenizing their own vault and using that tokenized version as a collateral to take leverage positions in their own exchange. So basically, you're saying is the thing that is you're essentially using an asset whose risk is basically directly tied to the exchange risk itself, right? So and that is actually really, really scary, right? So because if anything goes wrong, then the underlying asset collapses, and as a result, pretty much everything is correcting itself. It's basically like a black hole and a shooting star meeting each other. So it's tricky, right? So I think I don't think we want to go that direction. It's I think it's too risky, right? So and not in a good way. So so I mean, I love taking risks.
Yeah, on my end. I'll stop saying it's my idea.
probably not worth it. So
Yeah.
uh,
But it's true that one point, and I've seen a tweet from, I think it was a UNFI guy, it was like, now, and if you check DeFi Llama, there's like 10 billion of TVL in protocol that are called like basis trading. And it was like, it's kind of weird. Like 2 weeks ago, we had the like, biggest black swan token nuking like for years. And seemingly no one died or not even died, like got some little bruises. So it was like, yeah, good chance some stuff is still like hidden or swept in and under the rug. Do you believe there is like some up to come, like floating bodies?
no, sorry, I don't follow the question.
Like, do you think there is a bit like FTX back in the day, like for 2 months, you're like, oh, maybe it's fine, maybe it's not fine. And one day, actually, all right, this was not backed. Do you think there is a relative big player / protocol that pretty much went bust, but we don't know yet?
I mean, there could be plenty, right? So that we don't know, and some of them are doing something really, really crazy. I don't want to name anyone, but at the same time, let's see how it turns out, right? Because on one hand, I love the perp meta, where everyone is like perps is the best place to go. On the other hand, there is too many of us, and and some of us are not managing risk really well. So I think which is not a good thing, right? So you'll likely see something happen. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. But at the same time, I guess it's like the circle of life. You gotta do things. Then it's like good times create weak men, and weak men create bad times. Bad times creates strong men. Strong men create good times, kind of thing. So this is like exactly. Good. It's like good founders create good perps, and then good perps create good times. So good times create bad perp markets.
Yeah, we're gonna become weak. That's what you mean.
So, but yeah, that being said, I mean, you always learn lessons and you move on, right? So, or maybe nothing happens. This is a super cycle. We just figure this out this time, and then things just go up only. So.
You heard it here first. No, amazing. And I guess as we close on the hour as well, to let you get back to cooking, Varun. One last question that my usual co-host has is, if you were today to give yourself an advice of wanting to enter the space, work in crypto, knowing all that you know now, what would you tell yourself? What would it be?
So I think patience is the key to, and survival is actually, those are the two big things, because many people tend to give up too quickly, right? So and many people entering crypto want like quick returns. So anytime even like people who ask me like, oh, okay, what should I buy? And I'm like, oh, these are the coins with the fundamentals, and like BTC, Zk, Sol, Hype. These are the coins that actually have fun. And if you buy them right now, you just don't think about it for the next 4 years, and you'll be happy. They're like, no, but I want to make 100x like tomorrow. I'm like, yes, but that's like asking, tell me what can I do to win the lottery, right? So the odds of that happening is like so low. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll get it, but at the same time, there's like no such thing as like making a quick buck and then exiting, right? So if that's the mindset you're coming from, then like obviously, if you're 1 in a million lucky people, then sure, maybe you'll make some money. But otherwise, I think probably don't do it. I think on the other hand, if you are here for the long term, then I think the patience does pay off, right? So I think and patience and consistency, right? Those are the two things that go a long way. So and I think even like from my own experience, right? Like just doing things to perfection and over time improving them, it does pay dividends over time. So really, I think it's a game of patience more than anything else. And I think people tend to underestimate that, and they're looking for something to get rich today. But that's actually, in many ways, if you think about like Bitcoin, if you bought like in 2016 and just held on to it, you probably I don't know, like being Warren Buffett or something, right? So in terms of your ROI, so and even if you had gotten in like 2021, you still would have done a pretty good job, right? And in 4 years, and that's actually not a bad way to. That's actually pretty good, and from going from like 12K to 120K in 4 years, that's like a more than 10x return. That never happens anywhere else. So I think it's just a matter of patience. Like it seems a lot, like a 4 year horizon, but it's actually, it goes up quickly, and you just have to, keep the grind and not actually fall for the, the shiny objects. I think that's the best advice that I've followed for myself, and I think also I can tell other people to do that.
That's a very good one. I don't have any parting thoughts. Varun, thank you very much for taking the time. It was super interesting to get to know Hibachi, and I hope our Pythians watching enjoyed it. Anyone's watching, go check out hibachi.xyz. Another very strong perp using some beautiful and very good pith data. Varun, thank you for the time, and I guess we'll keep an eye on the main account to see all the good stuff that you guys have cooking for the rest of the year and moving forward.
No, thank you so much. All right, thanks guys. That's the call.
Pleasure, sir. Have a good one.
You too.
Boom, another fantastic one. Thanks to Varun.
Parting thought is easy, actually, is do exactly, not financial advice, of course, do exactly the opposite of what Varun said. If you lost, go revenge trade on Hibachi for those sweet points.
I guess there's, you can go up or down, and that's you flip a coin.
It's only a number on a screen. It's not real.
Exactly. Pythians, thank you all for the time. Mark, thank you for your precious time as well to have Varun on. We'll have Chop back likely next week. I know who's coming on next week. It's a great one where it's going to be super. I mean, very excited about this one.
Do you have a hint for them?
Do I have a hint? It's also building a perp dex. Alongside more, and another better hint that you could have is it made its way to a Pyth ecosystem weekly recap video not too long ago. So you might know from watching back a couple of those. But no, that's about what I will tell for this one. And yeah, I guess 27 in the books. Looking forward to 28 next week. Pythians, thank you for your time. Follow the Pyth account if you don't. Get in the Discord for the sweet Pythian pesos and contribute. Bunch of opportunities. And we'll see you on the timeline and the order books, I guess.
Have a good one.